I always thought I'd know when something was off. Thought I'd be the kind of guy who could spot the signs before things spiraled, someone who trusted his gut and acted before it was too late. Turns out gut instincts are a lot quieter than I expected. They whisper. They don't scream. Not at first. That morning started like any other, or it should have. I woke up around 6, groggy and a little disoriented. I hadn't planned to be up that early, especially on a Saturday, but sleep had been hit or miss lately. Leslie was already out of bed, which wasn't too unusual. Sometimes she liked to run before breakfast. I figured maybe she'd gone for a jog or ducked out to grab coffee. I dragged myself into the bathroom, still rubbing my eyes, and that's when I saw it. On the mirror. A name. It wasn't mine. It wasn't hers. Just 4 letters clearly written in the fading steam from her shower, Jace. Not smudged. Not accidental. Not some random condensation pattern. It looked purposeful. Neat, like someone had taken the time to trace it with a fingertip. My stomach tightened. At first, I just stared at it, waiting for it to vanish like a ghost. But it didn't. It lingered like it wanted to be noticed. Jace. I don't know why that name hit so hard. I didn't even know a Jace. And Leslie, she wasn't the type to play games. At least, I used to believe that. But then again, you only ever think you know someone until the story changes. Trying to shake off the paranoia, I leaned over the sink to splash cold water on my face, and that's when I noticed something else. Something that didn't belong. In the trash can beside the vanity was a deodorant stick. Not mine. Different shape. Different brand. I picked it up without thinking. Still mostly full. The scent was unfamiliar, sharper than the kind I use. I checked the label, definitely men's. Definitely not something Leslie would buy for me, and I hadn't run out recently anyway. Weird. I straightened up, already feeling the weight of unease building in my chest, and that's when it hit me. There were 3 toothbrushes now. We used to have 2. Always had 2. Mine was dark blue, hers light blue. Simple. Matching. But now there was a third one sitting between them, a matte black handle, new-looking, no wear on the bristles. And just like that, it clicked. Someone else had been here. That's when my heart really started pounding. My mind was racing ahead of me, trying to piece it all together while my feet stayed rooted to the tile. I told myself maybe I was jumping to conclusions. Maybe Leslie had a friend stay over. Maybe I was losing it. But then I went to the kitchen, trying to tell myself I was being ridiculous, and found a glass in the sink. Nothing strange about that at first. But then I noticed the lipstick. It was faint, but it was there. Coral pink. Glossy. And Leslie? She's more of a muted mauve type. Always said bolder colors made her feel like she was trying too hard. I'd watched her put that same subtle tone on every day for the last 3 years. So whose glass was this? I didn't say anything right away. Instead, I stood there staring at the rim of the cup like it might confess to something. My thoughts were loud, looping in circles, chasing themselves with no clear conclusion. I kept coming back to the same question: who the hell was Jace? When Leslie got home, jogging shoes on, earbuds in, looking perfectly composed, I played it cool. Asked her how the run was. She smiled, told me it felt good to get out early before the heat kicked in. I nodded, pretending to sip my coffee while every nerve in my body screamed at me to bring it up. So I did. Casually. Hey, babe, was someone over recently? Like, while I was out last week. She blinked once, clearly not expecting the question. My brother stopped by for a night. I thought I told you. You didn't. Oh, she said, already turning to pour herself a drink. Yeah, just a quick visit. He had a layover and didn't want to get a hotel. I nodded. Right? And the toothbrush? He forgot his, she said, completely unfazed. So I gave him one of the extras from the cabinet. Didn't think you'd notice? I didn't respond immediately. I was watching her closely, looking for any crack in the performance. There wasn't one. What about the deodorant in the trash? She smirked faintly. That's his too. You're really doing an audit in here, huh? And the glass in the sink? She turned around, leaning against the counter. Mine. Tried a new lipstick. Didn't like it. Too flashy. Her tone was calm. Cool. Not defensive, not rushed. If anything, her poise unsettled me more than her answers. There was a rhythm to her replies, like she had already rehearsed them in her head. I wanted to believe her. God, I really did. I wanted to believe that it was all some strange coincidence and that I was being paranoid because I'd been traveling too much, working too hard, missing too many dinners at home. But something about the way she handled the questions like they were beneath her left me cold. Later that night, she said something else. We were sitting on the couch watching a rerun of some old show, both half distracted. I don't even remember what triggered it, but out of nowhere, she turned to me and said, "You ever wonder if we care too much?" I raised an eyebrow. What do you mean? She shrugged. Just, I don't know. Like, maybe we care too much so it hurts more when things go sideways. Maybe we'd be better off playing a game of who can care less. I laughed awkwardly. That sounds toxic as hell. She grinned, eyes locked on the TV. Maybe. Or maybe it's just survival. I didn't respond. I just stared at the screen, not really seeing anything. Her words felt loaded, like a dare, or worse, a signal. As if something had already started between us and I was just catching up. The rest of the night went by quietly. Too quietly. I lay in bed with her beside me, staring at the ceiling, trying to find peace in the rhythm of her breathing. But it didn't help. Because now I was wondering things I hadn't allowed myself to wonder before. Had I already lost her? Was I just now waking up to the game she'd been playing alone? And if this was truly a game, if we were now keeping score, then I needed to decide something I never thought I'd have to. Do I play along? Or do I walk away before it breaks me? I wish I could say I let it go, that I believed Leslie's story and moved on like nothing happened. But that's not how it went. In truth, that morning with the mirror and the mystery name stuck with me like a splinter under the skin. I tried to push it out of my head, tried to be the reasonable partner, but every little thing she did after that started to take on new weight. I began noticing things I had probably overlooked before. Maybe they'd been happening for weeks, even months, but I told myself not to look too closely. Now I couldn't stop. The first thing that hit me was her phone. Leslie had always been casual with it, leaving it on the kitchen counter while she showered, letting it sit on the nightstand overnight, never worrying about me seeing her notifications. But lately? That changed. She set a new password, something long and complicated, and I only noticed because I watched her angle the screen away when she thought I wasn't looking. Not just once. Every time. Even in our own house. She took her phone everywhere, even to the bathroom. When I teased her about being glued to it, she smiled and said it was for work. Deadlines don't wait, she'd laugh. Client emails never stop. But the way she clutched that thing like a lifeline told me something else. It wasn't work. And then there were the weekend trips. A few months ago, she started saying she needed breaks, time to reset. Said she was going to visit her friend Katie, who lived in the suburbs about an hour away. I didn't argue. We all need time to breathe, right? But she never sent pictures. Never shared stories. And when I text to check in, she'd reply hours later with vague messages, having fun, talk soon. Followed by radio silence. Once I asked if Katie said hi and she blinked like she'd forgotten that was supposed to be the story. She's doing great, Leslie said quickly. Still in that weird situationship. You know how it is. I didn't know Katie. And Katie, for all her drama, always posted everything online, group sh*ts, brunch pics, selfies with captions like, wine o'clock with the bestie. But none of those pictures included Leslie. In fact, Katie's feed had been quiet on those weekends Leslie claimed to be there. It didn't add up. And it wasn't just her absence, it was who she became when she came back. Her energy was different. Not relaxed like someone who'd had a peaceful weekend, but electric. Edgy. She'd hum to herself, smile without reason, and wear this perfume I didn't recognize, rich, almost overpowering. I asked her about it once, and she said she was experimenting. Rediscovering myself, she said, like it was something to be proud of. That phrase kept echoing in my head, rediscovering myself. At first, it sounded like growth. I wanted to believe that. People evolve. Relationships evolve. But paired with everything else, it started to feel like a veiled excuse. Like I wasn't part of the version she was trying to rediscover. Her wardrobe changed too. She started wearing things she hadn't touched in years, short skirts, low-cut tops, heels she used to complain gave her blisters. It wasn't that I minded how she dressed. It was the timing. The inconsistency. The way it felt like she was dressing for someone else, not me. I remember one night vividly. I came home late from work, exhausted, hungry, and just needing some comfort. Leslie was in the living room, getting ready to go out, makeup flawless, hair curled, phone already in her hand. She said she was meeting Katie again. Didn't you just see her last weekend? I asked. She didn't miss a beat. Yeah, but we didn't really get to talk. It's just a quick dinner. I looked at her, at the dress she was wearing, the way her fingers fidgeted slightly on the purse strap. She wasn't nervous, but she wasn't relaxed either. She was poised, calculated. All right, I said. Be safe. She kissed my cheek like nothing was wrong. Like we weren't unraveling in real time. And maybe we were. Meals became separate. Conversations shorter. She stopped asking me about my day, stopped laughing at the dumb stories I used to tell about people at work. I could feel her drifting, inch by inch, and I kept reaching to pull her back, but my arms weren't long enough. One Saturday, I cooked breakfast, eggs, pancakes, bacon, the works. Used to be her favorite. She wandered into the kitchen, looked at the plate, and said, "I'm not really doing breakfast anymore." That was it. Not even a thank you. Not even a smile. Just a brush off, like I was a stranger trying to impress her. The more I thought about it, the more pieces fell into place. Her late nights. The new cologne I'd smell faintly on her clothes. The text that buzzed during dinner one night, screen flipped face down just as I glanced at it. A split-second glimpse of a heart emoji next to a name I didn't recognize. She caught me looking and smiled. "Just Katie being dramatic," she said. "Ignore it." I tried. God, I tried to believe it was all in my head. That maybe I was just being insecure. But how do you ignore your gut when it's screaming at you every time she walks out the door? One evening we were sitting on opposite ends of the couch, pretending to watch a movie. She scrolled through her phone and I glanced at her face. She was smiling, really smiling, the kind of smile I hadn't seen in weeks. I leaned over, curious. "What's so funny?" She locked her phone instantly. "Just a meme. Not even that funny." I didn't say anything. Didn't press. I just nodded and turned back to the screen, feeling like a ghost in my own home. The macy between us, physical, emotional, even the simple comfort of familiarity was fading fast. Her touch had become brief and distant. No more random hugs. No more running her fingers through my hair while we watched TV. Even in bed, she turned away, curled up at the edge like I might disappear if she kept her distance long enough. I started keeping notes, not out of obsession, but because I didn't trust my own memory anymore. I needed to remember what I saw, what I felt. I wrote down the date I found the toothbrush, the name on the mirror, the lipstick on the cup. I tracked her weekends, her mood shifts, the changes in her scent and style. I didn't know what I was looking for exactly. Proof, maybe. A reason to confront her. Or maybe I was hoping that by writing it all down I'd find something innocent. Something that made me feel like a fool for doubting her. But that never came. Instead, I started to see the pattern. The way she was slowly rewriting her life to erase me. Not with big dramatic exits, but with quiet detachment. She was building a world I didn't belong to anymore, and she wasn't hiding it, not really. She just knew I hadn't figured it out yet. And that, more than anything, made me feel hollow. I kept thinking back to that phrase she dropped so casually, a game of who can care less. At the time, it felt like a joke. Yeah? It felt like a blueprint. Leslie was already playing. And I was losing. Quietly. Bit by bit. But that was about to change. I used to think the truth would come in a single moment, some grand unveiling, a confrontation, a breakdown. But the truth doesn't always shout. Sometimes it seeps in, slow and steady, until you're drowning in it and can't remember when you started to sink. It had been building for weeks. The name on the mirror, the lipstick, the secret of phone use, the disappearing weekends. And through all of it, I kept trying to hold things together. To give Leslie the benefit of the doubt. To believe that maybe, just maybe, I was wrong. But deep down, I knew better. I just didn't want to know for sure. That changed the night she said she had a networking event. It was on a Thursday. She mentioned it offhandedly at breakfast, between bites of toast and sips of coffee, like it was no big deal. Said it was for her industry's local chapter, cocktails, mingling, a little boring, nothing to worry about. I smiled and nodded like I believed her. But inside, something clicked. She wasn't just lying. She was confident I'd never question her. That confidence pissed me off. So I did something I never thought I'd do. I crossed a line. I opened her laptop. It had been sitting on the dining table since the night before, half closed but still on. She must have left it there in a rush. Leslie was usually careful about her devices. Not that she had anything to hide, of course. Or so I used to think. I clicked open the screen and it was already logged in. No password prompt. Just a synced cloud drive open on the desktop, probably from a file she'd uploaded earlier. Most of it looked like work stuff, presentations, meeting notes. But one folder caught my eye. It wasn't named personal or private or anything obvious. It was called shared, like she was trying to bury it in plain sight. I opened it. There were pictures. Not hundreds. Just a dozen or so. But that was enough. The first one hit like a punch to the chest. It was Leslie, sitting on a bar stool, her arms wrapped around a guy I didn't recognize. His face was partially turned, but his hand was on her knee, fingers curled in a way that said this wasn't new. Leslie was smiling, not the forced smile I got at home, but the real one, the one she used to give me when we were still in love. Her head was tilted, resting lightly against his chest. Her lips touched his neck. I recognized the dress she was wearing, but not from our closet. She must have bought it recently. It was tight, dark green, something she wouldn't wear to a work event, let alone a networking mixer. I couldn't breathe. I kept scrolling. Another photo, them laughing, drinks in hand. Another, her leaning over a table, whispering something in his ear. And then a short video clip, just 10 seconds, but that was all it took. She was in the same bar, clinking glasses with him, giggling. She called him Jace. The name echoed in my brain like a thunderclap. The mirror. That damn mirror. It hadn't been a mistake. It had been a message. Or maybe a memory. Either way, it was real. I sat back in the chair, numb. Every suspicion I tried to bury had just burst into flames. There was no more wondering. No more maybe. It was right there, digital and undeniable. But I wasn't done. I needed to see it for myself. That night, I drove to the bar where she claimed her networking event was being held. It was across town, in a sleek part of the city we rarely visited together. Leslie had described it as some swanky cocktail place with business vibes. When I pulled into the parking lot, it was nearly empty. I checked my watch, 9:12 p.m. I went inside. The bartender gave me a once-over as I approached the counter. "Can I help you?" "Just wondering," I said, trying to sound casual. "Is there a professional event going on here tonight? A mixer or something?" He shook his head. "That was yesterday. Group from some consulting firm. Tonight's just regular service." I felt my jaw tighten. "Did you happen to see a woman here earlier? Short, brunette, green dress?" He thought for a second, then nodded. "Yeah. She was here last night. With a guy. Tall. Black button-up. They left around 11. I swallowed hard, trying not to let it show. "Thanks." I walked out and sat in my car for a long time, gripping the steering wheel until my knuckles turned white. She had lied straight to my face. Not slipped up. Not fumbled. Lied. Cleanly. Comfortably. Like it was easy for her now. I didn't cry. I didn't scream. I just felt nothing. Like my insides had been scooped out and replaced with static. When I got home, Leslie wasn't there yet. She walked in around midnight, heels clicking on the hardwood, purse slung over her shoulder. She looked surprised to see me sitting on the couch, lights low, TV off. "You're still up?" she asked, peeling off her coat. "Yeah," I said. "Did the event run late?" She nodded, not missing a beat. "You know how these things go. Small talk, business cards, pretending to care. Where was it again?" She glanced at me, then away. "The Larchmont." I nodded slowly. "Nice spot." She smiled faintly. "You okay?" I stood, walking past her without answering, and headed to bed. I didn't want to confront her, not yet. I wasn't ready. And honestly, I didn't think it would matter. She'd deny it. Gaslight me. Flip it around. She'd done it before in smaller ways, and now I knew just how far she'd taken it. The next morning, she was overly affectionate. Made breakfast. Played our old playlist while cooking. Left her phone on the counter like some kind of olive branch. It was a performance, I realized. She could feel the distance and was trying to close it with familiarity, not honesty. I let her act. Let her pretend. But I was already gone in my head. I started planning. Quietly. Methodically. I backed up everything from her laptop onto an external drive: photos, videos, timestamps. I took photos of the toothbrush, the deodorant, the lipstick-marked glass. If she wanted to play games, then so be it. But now I had the rulebook. That evening, as she left to grab drinks with coworkers, I stayed behind. I didn't follow her this time. I didn't need to. I knew what she was doing. I knew who she was doing it with. I stared out the window long after her car disappeared down the street. The house was silent. I could hear the clock ticking in the hallway. Each second felt like a drumbeat counting down to something inevitable. I wasn't hurt anymore. Not in the same way. It had calcified. Turned into something colder. More focused. This wasn't confusion. This was clarity. She wasn't who I thought she was. And I wasn't going to let her rewrite our story while I stood quietly in the margins. The truth was out now. And so was I. The morning after her networking event, I didn't confront Leslie. I didn't shout. Didn't throw her laptop across the room or demand an explanation. I didn't even hint that I knew. Because by then I had realized something important. I didn't need a confession to accept the truth. I already had it. The pictures, the bar visit, the name on the mirror, they weren't just signs anymore. They were facts. So instead, I did something quieter. I made my own breakfast. It might sound trivial, but it wasn't. For 3 years, I'd made a habit of cooking for us. Eggs the way she liked them, toast with just the right amount of butter. It was one of the ways I showed I cared. But that morning, I cracked a single egg into a pan, flipped a slice of bread into the toaster, and made just 1 cup of coffee. When Leslie came downstairs, her hair still wet from the shower, she stopped in the doorway. "Didn't make enough for 2? She asked lightly. I didn't look up from my plate. "Didn't know if you'd be hungry." "Oh. Okay." She stood there for a moment like she was waiting for something, an apology, an offer, maybe a smile. When she didn't get it, she poured her own coffee and sat at the other end of the table. We ate in silence, the clinking of silverware against ceramic louder than the words we weren't saying. That was the beginning. Over the next few days, I stopped asking where she was going. I didn't text her while she was out or ask if she needed anything from the store. I didn't linger in the doorway to kiss her goodbye. I didn't wait up at night, watching the time tick by, wondering when she'd come home. I just stopped. I moved through the house like a ghost, silent, unobtrusive, detached. I still showered, went to work, did the laundry. But I stopped engaging. No more, "How was your day?" No more shared playlists or inside jokes or gentle touches across the small distance between us on the couch. That distance, once bridgeable, had grown into a canyon. And I wasn't jumping anymore. She noticed. That Tuesday, she came home early. I was sitting on the porch, sipping a beer, staring at the street like it held some answer I couldn't find. She stepped outside and sat beside me. "You're quiet lately," she said. "Just tired. Tired of work, or?" I shrugged. "Everything." She nodded slowly. "If something's bothering you, you know you can talk to me, right?" The irony nearly made me laugh. But I didn't. I just took another sip and said, "Yeah, I know." She waited for more. When it didn't come, she went back inside. That was the first time she tried. The second came on Thursday. I came home to find dinner made, her attempt at that lentil curry recipe we'd once loved. The table was set, candles lit, music playing softly from the Bluetooth speaker in the corner. She looked up when I walked in, smiling like nothing was wrong. "I thought we could eat together tonight," she said. I sat, ate, said thank you. But I didn't meet her eyes, didn't comment on the music, didn't compliment the food. She cleared the plates in silence. Later, I found a note on my pillow. A folded square of stationery with her handwriting on it, soft curves, careful loops. It read, "I miss us. I know something's off. Can we talk?" I left it untouched. Not out of cruelty, but because I didn't believe in what it implied. Us didn't exist anymore. It had been slowly erased, overwritten by something hollow and unfamiliar. By the weekend, her gestures grew more desperate. She played our favorite records in the evening, pulled old photo albums off the shelf, left out a candle I'd once bought her from that trip to the mountains. Like artifacts from a forgotten era, she was trying to summon a version of us that no longer lived here. But the house was quiet. And I stayed quiet with it. The strangest thing was how calm I felt. Not peaceful, not content, just still. Like I had finally stopped fighting against a current I never had control over in the first place. There was no point in arguing. I didn't want an apology. I didn't want explanations. I didn't even want revenge. I just wanted out. And she could feel it. One evening I came home and found her sitting on the edge of the bed, staring at her hands. She didn't look up when I walked in. She just said, "Are we okay?" I paused in the doorway, took a breath. "I don't know. Do you still love me?" I could have lied. Could have told her what she wanted to hear. But I didn't. "I don't know." She turned to me then, her eyes shining. "Brian, please. If I've done something wrong." I cut her off with a look. Not angry. Just tired. She stopped talking. I showered. Changed. Crawled into bed facing the opposite direction. She didn't try to reach for me. She didn't ask again. Over the next week, I made other quiet changes. I started separating my laundry. Bought groceries just for myself. I stopped adding her favorite snacks to the cart, stopped folding her clothes into neat piles like I used to. I even moved a few things into the guest room, just enough to start the shift. My phone charger. A book. My overnight bag. She noticed. Of course she did. But she didn't say anything. Not anymore. Whatever game she thought we were playing, the one where the winner was whoever cared less, I wasn't playing it anymore. Not to win. Not even to compete. I was opting out entirely. There's a difference between indifference and letting go. What I felt now wasn't bitterness. It wasn't a desire to make her feel the pain she'd caused. It was detachment. It was walking away inch by inch until I was gone and she couldn't even mark the day it happened. And in some twisted way, I think that scared her more than a fight ever would. Because a fight meant I still cared. This was final. One night, after she came home late again, she peeked into the guest room and saw me lying there, half asleep, the lamp still on beside me. "Can I come in?" she asked softly. I looked at her for a long time. Then I said, "I think I need space." Her lips pressed together. She nodded. "Okay." She closed the door behind her. And that was the last night she asked. In the mornings, she started waking up before me. I'd hear her footsteps on the stairs, the soft clang of dishes in the sink. I knew she was trying. Or pretending. Or both. I didn't care anymore. She'd play music while making breakfast, but never asked if I wanted any. She used to sit beside me on the couch even when we weren't talking. Now she stayed at the far end or didn't sit at all. She'd fold laundry while watching TV, fold mine separately, leave it by the door of the guest room like some kind of truce. It all felt too late. She'd had her chances. And maybe once I would have taken the bait, followed the scent of old songs and old photos back to something worth saving. But now? Now, the silence between us wasn't just absence. It was decision. And mine had already been made. It's funny how much a person can prepare in silence. I never told Leslie I was leaving. Not directly. There was no dramatic speech, no ultimatum shouted in the middle of the kitchen, no suitcase flung open in front of her just to make a point. That wasn't my style. Not anymore. I didn't want a performance. I wanted out. I had started renting an apartment across town, small, nothing fancy, but clean and quiet. The kind of place that didn't come with memories baked into every wall. I signed the lease 2 weeks before I planned to move. At first, I just visited on weekends, bringing over small boxes I claimed were for work. I told Leslie I had taken on a new project, needed space to focus. She barely blinked. Maybe she didn't care, or maybe she didn't want to admit she noticed the shift. Either way, she never asked. By the time the final week came around, most of my essentials were already at the new place: clothes, documents, backup drives, even my favorite mug. The only things left were the pieces I'd leave behind. Furniture we bought together. Photos I couldn't bear to pack. The life we once had, now staged like a museum neither of us visited anymore. It was a Tuesday when I made the final move. Leslie was at work. I had taken the day off, pretending I had a client call. I woke early, loaded my car with the last of my things, and made one final pass through the house. Every room looked just as we had left it, but everything felt hollow, like even the walls had started to forget us. In the bedroom, I paused by her side of the bed. There was a small jewelry tray she used to leave her earrings in. For some reason, that's what got me. I stared at it for a long time, then turned away. I left the keys on the counter. And on the way out, I called the locksmith. The new locks were changed by 4 p.m. By the time Leslie came home that evening, I was gone, completely and irreversibly gone. I don't know what she expected to find when she pulled into the driveway, probably the same quiet, distant man who'd stopped making eye contact over breakfast. But when she tried the key, when it didn't turn, when the lock refused to click open no matter how many times she jiggled it, something broke. I was at the new apartment by then. Sitting on the floor, eating takeout out of the box, the blinds half closed. My phone buzzed once, twice, a dozen times. The first call came from her cell. Then from an unknown number. Then from her work line. I didn't answer any of them. The messages started almost immediately. The first one was confusion. "Brian, what the hell? My key doesn't work. Are you home?" Then came irritation. "Is this some kind of joke? Why are you ignoring me?" Then panic. "Okay, seriously, this isn't funny. Did you change the locks?" And then rage. "You think you can just lock me out of my own house? Who do you think you are?" I sat on the floor and read them all. Not out of spite, but because I needed to see how far she'd go. I needed to see what she'd do when she realized she didn't control the board anymore. After the messages came the voicemails. The first few were short and angry. She demanded answers. Called me dramatic. Accused me of being manipulative, of trying to punish her. But then the tone shifted. Somewhere around the 7th message, her voice cracked. "Brian, please. I don't know what's going on. I know we've been distant, but this? You're scaring me." That message stayed with me the longest, not because I believed it, but because it was the closest she ever came to admitting she'd lost control. By the next day, I had blocked her number. I blocked her email, her socials, even her work contact. If she needed to reach me, she could do it through the lawyer I hadn't hired yet but was already researching. I didn't want to hear from her. I didn't want another half-truth wrapped in a soft voice. She showed up once. Friday evening. I saw her from the window of my new place, standing on the sidewalk like a lost tourist in the wrong neighborhood. She didn't knock. Just stood there for a few minutes, holding something in her hands, a box, maybe, or a bag. I didn't move. Eventually, she left it on the doormat and walked away. Inside the box was a mix of things: a photo of us from the cabin trip 2 years ago, a sweatshirt of mine she used to steal, a birthday card I'd given her that said, "Always." Taped to the top was a note. "If this is really goodbye, I needed you to have these. I'm sorry." I threw the box into the closet without opening anything else. Not because I was angry, but because I didn't need it. Those things belonged to a version of us that didn't exist anymore. Whatever she thought she was salvaging with that gesture, it was too late. The texts from unknown numbers continued through the weekend. She must have gotten creative, borrowing friends' phones or using burner apps. The messages bounced between guilt and gaslighting. You just abandoned me. After everything. You're acting like I cheated on you. I didn't. I swear. We were in a rough patch. Everyone goes through that. You never even gave me a chance to explain. But I had. She just never used it. I didn't respond to any of them. I didn't need to. By Sunday night, the tone had shifted again. Now she was casting herself as the victim. Telling me how unfair I was being. How cruel I was to ghost her. How I was making her look bad to her friends and family. As if the real betrayal was me walking away, not everything she did that made walking away the only option left. The following week, I got a message from a mutual friend, someone we'd gone on double dates with, someone who didn't know the whole story. Hey man, Leslie's been trying to reach you. Are you okay? This seems out of character. I ignored it. Then another message came from a different friend, this one more pointed. Look, I don't know what happened between you two, but she's really hurting. Maybe just talk to her. That's when I knew she had started her campaign. The rewriting of the narrative. The PR push. I could see it so clearly, Leslie sitting down with people we used to know, spinning the story. Brian left. Brian ghosted me. Brian just walked out. Poor Leslie. But I didn't care. I let them believe whatever she wanted them to believe. Because I didn't owe her anything. Not an explanation, not a conversation, not closure. She had spent the last few months treating our relationship like it was disposable. Now she was getting exactly what she'd asked for. Silence. Permanent silence. The calls stopped eventually. The texts slowed. The unknown numbers dwindled. She still tried to find cracks, of course. Leaving comments on old photos. Reacting to stories from mutual friends. I could tell she was hoping I'd see them, that I'd reach out. But I didn't. Because I knew what this was about. It wasn't love. It was control. She hadn't expected me to leave. Not really. She thought I'd simmer forever. That I'd stay stuck, orbiting around her, hoping for scraps of connection. She thought my silence was weakness. But it wasn't. It was the final word. She had called it a game once. Who could care less? I had stopped playing. She had lost. And she hadn't even noticed until the scoreboard was gone. Weeks passed. Quiet ones. I settled into the new apartment, learned its sounds, its light patterns, the way the floors creaked at night. It wasn't home yet, but it was something else, mine. Leslie continued her campaign for a while, texts through friends, posts that felt like traps. Old photos resurfaced with nostalgic captions. She even sent a handwritten letter through one of her coworkers claiming she'd finally seen what she lost. But nothing she did felt real. Not anymore. It wasn't regret that drove her, it was panic. She didn't expect me to disappear, didn't think I'd really go through with it. So when I did, she started to unravel. Her apologies came with conditions, her sadness always with a twist of manipulation. I didn't respond. Not once. Eventually, the messages slowed. The comments stopped. Friends stopped asking. I didn't need to justify myself. The people who mattered didn't need the story. And the ones who believed hers, well, I let them. If she needed to play the victim, fine. I had no interest in proving her wrong. The truth had already done that. In time, silence stopped feeling like emptiness. It became peace. The kind you don't notice at first, like a pressure lifting off your chest slowly, breath by breath. There was no tension in the mornings. No wondering where she was, who she was texting. I cooked my own meals again, watched the shows I liked without compromise, left dishes in the sink if I felt like it. I was alone, but I wasn't lonely. I started running again, something I'd stopped doing when life got too heavy. I picked up old books, reconnected with friends I hadn't seen in years. Nobody asked too many questions. They just welcomed me back. That was enough. One morning, I looked around the apartment, sunlight spilling across the floor, coffee brewing in the kitchen, no voices, no lies, and realized I wasn't thinking about her at all. Not her name. Not her face. Not even her betrayal. And that, more than anything, felt like healing. She remained behind, trapped in the ruins of a game she started but never learned how to finish. And me? I had finally chosen myself.